Celtics Heat. To be honest, I would like to start with the Heat. I
Yep.
feel like I feel like they deserve kind of that credit. They're up 3-0. Really, I didn't feel like any of these games were super competitive outside of game two, particularly. I know they won game one by 7, but that really felt like the Heat were kind of in control to me for a good amount of that. But game two, it felt like the Celtics are up 10 with like 6-7 minutes left, if I remember correctly. Jimmy scores one, Jimmy scores two, gets into Grant Williams' face, scores another one, calls him too short, and then the momentum kind of switches, right? Is that moment why that happened? No, like it's very possible Jimmy just scores anyways, right? But that's
Yeah.
kind of what the media ran with, right?
Mhm.
To me, this is incredible. This is a Spoelstra masterclass. Defensively, they're playing with guys like Max Strus and Duncan Robinson, who, again, in the regular season, they're known and arguably are pretty terrible defenders. And somehow Spoelstra can have them on the court at the same time. Sometimes it's a masterclass.
It's amazing, and it is a combination of a head coach who is, I think, really starting to get his groove because
Mm-hmm.
he was already top 15 all time.
Yep.
Maybe critics can kind of point at, oh, you had LeBron, you had D Wade, you couldn't get it done in a couple of those series. Where's the criticism for you now? He has shown pretty consistently that he can take a team, especially with a guy like Jimmy Butler, and have him rise to the occasion. And you're combining that with these undrafted players where Jimmy was the 30th player. Even Bam was the 13th overall pick. I saw something, I think it's Tyler Zeller is their highest drafted player.
Cody Zeller, yeah,
Sorry, Cody Zeller.
fourth overall,
Fourth
yeah,
overall,
like
yeah. That goes to show sort of where where he goes in that hierarchy. I think it's a combination of you getting Eric Spoelstra, who is in now entering the prime of his coaching career, I believe, with a guy like Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, who knew that they could beat the Celtics last year. And I think honestly, I was frightened about them the whole time. I was frightened about them when they went into the play-in game against the Hawks. I was relieved and grateful that they lost to the Hawks because
mhm.
I thought, oh hey, the Bucks will kind of, the Bucks will be slowed down by them a bit. That obviously didn't happen. You get Eric Spoelstra, you get this ragtag group of guys who Jimmy Butler, well, I've never seen a player like him before, um, galvanize these guys into thinking that they're stars and that they can do everything they want because they have his full confidence. Tyler Hero is not even back. When he was first announced as out, I don't think anybody besides maybe a few passionate Heat fans thought, oh, that doesn't really mean anything because it's in the middle of the Bucks series and you're not gonna make it that far anyways. And now they have him to look forward to coming back, which I believe the report said back when in the first round he got injured, he would be back in the finals. So if he comes back into the finals, that is going to be a whole new thing. I'm not sure. He was out and they suddenly turned it up and they started going crazy. I'm not even going to make a conversation about like whether he helps or hinders. Obviously, I'm sure he does. And that's not what this is about. But it's the combination of that and a rookie head coach who we'll get into the Celtics maybe a bit later. And I have a lot of thoughts about that. But I don't think he was ready for this moment. And that's okay. He's a rookie head coach. That happens. That's life. And you saw that. And it's tough not to say people kind of make these different excuses. They're more talented on paper, etc. The Heat, the better team is winning these games. You pointed it out. Game one, the Celtics were within 4-7 the whole fourth quarter, pretty much. I'm a Celtics fan. You can see it. You can see how the Heat are playing. You can see the confidence, the bravado that they have. They were never going to lose. That felt like a 15-point lead, not a 4-point lead, not a 5-point lead, and they were fine, like you said. So the score was close, but it did not indicate the dominance that the Heat had. Same thing with game two. Maybe the Grant Williams thing got Jimmy into extra gear. I'm not sure what the final score. I know they won by maybe 6 or something on free throws in the end and everything, but I still think they were going to come back and win that game. In these close games, when you're looking at two teams, the team that you feel more confident is going to come out on top is the team that is significantly better. That's why the Nuggets beat the Lakers. That's why the Heat are beating and now throttling in game three the Celtics, where they kind of just rip their heart out. It's very impressive what the Heat are doing, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head every part of that. To be honest, I just really want to reiterate the part about like, sure, the Celtics going into the series looked like the better team on paper. Like up and down the board, they've been outplayed, outmatched, and I'm not sure if a different coach, if you just popped in Ime right now, maybe they'd have one more win. It's like I don't know. It'd be really difficult for me to argue that this series in this current state of both of those teams, that you could only change a few things and the series would go a different way. Like there would need to be mass changes across the board for there to be a chance. What's insane to me is like Gabe Vincent scoring 17 a game in this series. You guys like Caleb Martin 17, 19, 18, 19, like things like that. Like at some point, there's 5 guys on the Heat scoring above like 15 a game in this series. Like that's really hard to stop. And what other teams can do that? Like that's kind of the other place where I'm at with this. Like I think the Raptors, this team reminds me of the Raptors basically, but the Raptors in 2019, they had their star, but then they had like 6 or 7 other guys who played defense and they are just shot creators. They can make their own shot. They can, like, in a game 7, 2 or 3 of those guys is going to be hitting. Like, you know what I'm saying? And then you're going to have
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler, hopefully. And that's why in these close games, Spoelstra can just mix and match. Like Kyle Lowry can ride the bench in the last 6 minutes because Gabe Vincent is shooting like 55% from 3. Like they are just able to do all that. And because, I think the undrafted thing's a little bit, everyone's undrafted. That's crazy. Like these are good players, but you're right. The egos are a little bit of a aside. It's not Jordan Poole with the $140 million contract coming in saying, yo, I want to be a starter. It's Max Strus who's like, I'm about to hit restricted free agency and make money for the first time in my life. Like I'm very impressed with this team. And I can't believe it. I cannot believe the way this series is going, and I can't believe the Heat. It's amazing. It's amazing.
It's one of those things. I think you make a great point, honestly, in everything you're saying, and especially that I can't believe it. We didn't get a chance to record this podcast last week.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. I thought the Celtics were going to win in a tough 6, maybe even 7. I don't know. What would you have said before this?
Going into the series, I was pretty on the fence because I thought there was I wasn't impressed by the 76ers by the end of that series.
No,
Like as much as the
no.
Celtics did win that series, it wasn't like the
Yeah.
Sixers
No.
like
Yeah.
yeah. So I was gonna kind of come in and be like, I think it's probably a 7-game series. There was no way I could have thought there would be 3-0 without like a severe injury. Like I just would have assumed
No.
one of these games the Heat would be cold and Tatum would have 40. It's like,
Yeah.
and maybe that
Doesn't
happens
happen.
tonight.
Yeah.
But like,
Right. Sure. Maybe in
yeah,
the gentleman's sweep game, but I
yeah.
mean, it's what you said. The Celtics were a mentally tougher team than the 76ers, and that's why they beat them in game 7. Being mentally tougher than the Sixers is not good enough to win a championship.
Pistons might be
And
mentally tougher than the Sixers.
the
I said the Pistons might be mentally tougher than the Sixers.
they damn right might be. The Hawks might be the
Oh
70s.
yeah, actually that's a good point. They actually might be.
I mean, we're not going to talk quite yet about Celtics, but just as a comparison, how I thought, the Heat could have won was Jimmy goes nuclear at least 4 of 7 games because the C's could win one nuclear Jimmy game, or they could also lose a non-nuclear Jimmy game. So that already happened, the non-nuclear one last night, even though he still played amazing. Like he still gets an A for the game, even though his stats aren't amazing. He didn't shoot fantastic. Second one for me was City died of Gabe Vincent, Caleb Martin, Kevin Love, Duncan Robinson, Kyle Lowry, Max Strus, who at the time were all averaging between 12 and 9 points per game. Let's see what they averaged. Besides Jimmy, who's at 26, of course. Caleb Martin, 19. Bam Adebayo, 18. Gabe Vincent, 18. Duncan Robinson, 12. Max Strus, 12. Kyle Lowry, Kevin Love, 7 and 4, but they're impactful and important 7 and 4s. Let's see. Okay, so that's 4 guys who averaged over 17 a game. Jason Tatum, 26 kind of empty points per game. Then Jaylen Brown, 16.7. That's the comparison. That's what needed to happen for the Celtics to need to win. Tatum need to play well. There's this phenomenon that happens with the Celtics, with a lot of teams. I see it a lot with the Celtics because I watch, I would assume I watch a comparable number of Celtics games that you watch, Warriors games, right? You can really feel it in a way where if I'm watching a Jazz game, I don't know the vibes of the team very well. The Celtics have this thing that happens to them, especially against a strong team where can't quite pin if it's imposter syndrome. We don't deserve to be here with Tatum and Brown. Are we really these guys? Not that they don't have the ability. Tatum said it himself. I'm one of the best players in the world. I believe when he says it. There's something that's not quite there. And the whole team kind of gets in this interesting spot where they all either fly together or they freeze together. And when they're flying together, it is a crazy, beautiful thing to watch as a Celtics fan. I'm thinking of game 2 against the Sixers, where even Tatum was cold. That's okay. We're going to win by 30. Game 7, right? When they're flying, no one can touch us, not even the Nuggets. But too often, when the game is tight, when should this go to Tatum? But Tatum is like, do I deserve to be that guy that it should be going to? There's a lot of thinking going on. There's a lot of overthinking going on, and it's getting in the way of efficient basketball. Whereas with the Heat, somebody's not having a good game. That's okay. Jimmy Butler still loves you. Jimmy Butler just wants to win the game. That's what his only goal is. And if your only goal is to win that game and you're Max Strus and you're not hitting threes, just okay, that's all right. Sit on the bench, let Duncan cook. He's hot right now. That's fine. But it's not one player faltering, the other guys falter. Because when Jimmy Butler isn't having a great game, mentally he's still there. Physically, emotionally, he is still present at that game. And it gives his other teammates that inspiration that they can keep going and they can keep winning. That's what's so impressive to me. And that's what the mental toughness kind of comes in. There's all sorts of different mental toughness. And I'm sure we were talking about this before we started podding. We're going to talk about whole different topics over the summer. Historical stuff, off-season stuff, fan stuff, etc. But one of the things with mental toughness is there are different levels to it and there's different ways of doing it. And the way that the Nuggets are mentally tough is not the same way that the Heat are mentally tough. And I'm curious to dive into that maybe later on or as that series goes on. But the difference here is interesting to see. It feels like a bunch of guys who are very talented, who either don't know if they deserve to be able to be good enough to win, combined with the rookie head coach who's, deer in headlights for a series, or if it is a struggle of hierarchy and why can't we do this and we should be able to do this, but we can't do this, or are we getting in our own way? Combined with, on the other side, a Heat team that is saying we didn't have a good regular season record-wise, and that's okay. We're still going to do what we have to do. We're going to go ahead and we're going to do our game plan. And like you had said, they play a completely different style from any other team in the NBA, and it works so well for them. By far. They zig where other people zag. And they have a player in Jimmy Butler that I've never seen before in my life.